Well, hello everybody. Happy Tuesday. Another beautiful day here in the Coachella Valley. And just got back. Sorry about that. I got distracted as I do often, making sure everything's working right here. I'm still trying to play around with things, be honest with you, just transparent and being honest. Um, just got back from 4 days in the beautiful state of Washington, up in Spokane. Good friends of ours' daughter got married this weekend. So it was pleasant being up there, enjoy being up there, getting out of this California desert heat. It was quite cool up there. I had 1 day or 2 days, a day and a half of rain, I guess it was. They have a beautiful home overlooking the Spokane River in 9 Mile Falls, Washington. My kind of country. Absolutely beautiful up there. Hello, Bob. Hello, Carrie. So it was nice to get out of this California desert for 4 days. To be honest with you, I didn't want to come home. I love that kind of country up there. Beautiful. Hunting and fishing right in his backyard. I can't complain about that. But I'm back here. Thanks for being patient with me yesterday. We were traveling all day yesterday, so it was not easy to do the live feed. But I'm here today, and we'll start today on chapter 4 about coping mechanisms. I'm going to start with a quote by Marianne Williamson. It's at the first part of this chapter. It says, "One day I looked at something in myself that I had been avoiding because it was too painful. Yet once I did, I had an unexpected surprise. Rather than self-hatred, I was flooded with compassion for myself because I realized the pain necessary to develop that coping mechanism to begin with. I realized the pain necessary to develop that coping mechanism to begin with. You know, we endure a lot of pain in our life, especially survivors of abuse. There's a lot of pain as children, as teenagers, as young adults that we endure. And during that endurance period and that time of life, I believe that God gives us this innate ability to just cope and to manage our lives. It works for a very long time. Are they the best coping mechanisms all the time? Well, no, they're not. But they got us where we're at today. Hello, Linda. They got us where we're at today. So what exactly is a coping mechanism? A coping skill or mechanism is anything that gets you through the day. So what's going to get you through the day? For some of us, the skills are healthier than others, but if they kept us alive, they're working. So again, for years, our coping skills and coping mechanisms might not have been the best, but they worked for us. It could have been things like drugs, alcohol, overeating. There's a gamut of things that they could have been. So the whole journey of recovery, and the part of recovery that people miss, is that we want to develop new, healthier coping skills as we go, and they can be done. There's a lot of them probably right in your house, and you probably already have a lot of them in your arsenal. I know when I was doing my inventory, my assets and defects, when I sat down with my sponsor, at first I had a lot more defects than I did assets, and he made me go back and do it. And then I realized that some of my defects were actually assets, and some of my assets were actually defects. So when we started looking at this stuff on the road, we discovered a lot about ourselves. It might seem like it was a good defect because it kept us safe, pushing people away. You know, it kept people safe. I'm not going to let nobody get close to me, because anytime anybody gets close to me, you know, I get hurt. So in our mind, that's a safe coping skill, but in the real world, the recovery, it's an unhealthy coping skill. We don't want to push people away, especially people that really want to help us. There's people we got to keep out of our lives, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, we want those healthy people in our lives so they can walk with us and help us recover. We don't want to we don't want to remember, we don't want to discount all those skills that we learn coming in. We want to keep them there. And when you got a mentor or a sponsor, you're going to walk through all these with that mentor or that sponsor, and he'll help you find the one. He or she will help you find those coping mechanisms or skills that work or don't work, that are good or not good. And there's different ways you can look at it, and that's sometimes we'll have to dive deep into those coping mechanisms and take a little journey back through our life. Hey, Laura, we'll have to take a little journey back through our life and look at those coping mechanisms. And did they really serve us good? Did they serve us bad? Did they serve us good but yet cause problems? So there's a lot that we got to look at. And we use dozens of coping mechanisms every day, subconsciously and consciously, to minimize stress and to solve our personal and interpersonal problems. A lot of these coping mechanisms are so built into who we are that they're at a subconscious level. They just happen. And some of them we consciously use. But I would tend to bet that most of them are on a subconscious level. They're just a part of who we are. And so you don't even realize that they're a coping skill. And again, that's where a good mentor or coach or sponsor is gonna help you develop those different skills and weed out the bad ones. Coping skills can be both maladaptive or constructive. They'll range from abusing alcohol or sex, drugs, and then meditating, praying, or playing a musical instrument. One of the my two good coping mechanisms, or the one that was really good for me growing up, was surfing, because I could take off, I could get in the water, and nobody could touch me. Nobody could say nothing to me. It was just me and Mother Nature. And oftentimes I would stay out until after dark just so I didn't have to go home and put up with the abuse that I was receiving at home. So I would stay out in the water and just be with nature and be with God back then. Or another one I would do is I would walk about a mile out in the hills. There's a beautiful spot that I would sit down, and the foxtails would be about head high by the time I sat down. The wind would be blowing on my face. The sun would be basking on my face. And I'd see up and down the coast, and I just sit there with me and my dog. And I knew I was safe there. It was a way to get away from what I was dealing with. In a way, it was a coping mechanism. You know, my bad coping mechanisms turned into drugs and alcohol, because that really, for the time being, for the 8 hours or 12 hours, that absolutely did away with the shame and the pain that I was feeling, although it caused a lot more shame and pain in the long run. So that would be a maladaptive coping mechanism. Coping skills they fall into three main categories. I'm going to just kind of read these out, okay? One is they're appraisal focused, which are related to how we see a problem. So otherwise, we base our coping mechanisms based on how we see a particular problem come up. We're going to deal with it. You know, I might see it one way and you might see it another way, and Bob might see it another way, and Carrie and Linda, we're all going to see problems differently. So we're going to deal with those problems based on our perception of what we're seeing, not on anybody else's. And so we might be doing something that we feel is okay, and somebody's going to look at us, go, "What are you doing?" You know, I would do it this way. But we got to remember, we're not the other person. And so we're going to do things how we feel best for us. Okay, that's less fearful for us. That's easy for us to deal with. Is it right or wrong? At the time, if it's helping you get through the day, it's right. You know, you can figure out later if it was wrong. The other one is a problem-focused coping skill, which remove the source of a problem by changing or eliminating the stressor behind it. Okay, so we're going to whatever's causing the stress behind it, we're going to change it. We're going to eliminate it altogether. It might be a person who's going to eliminate them out of your life. It's one way to remove a stress. If you got a person causing a lot of stress, then, well, the problem is Bill, and I know how I can get rid of it. I'll eliminate Bill, right? Or it could be, you know, changing something inside your house. There's a lot of different ways those two items will work. Then you got the emotion focus, which attempt to mitigate the stress by minimizing, reducing, avoiding, or preventing unwanted emotional response. So we'll do anything to minimize our emotional pain. or avoid it or prevent the unwanted emotional response. That's what I would do. Is like if things got rough around the house and my mother and my stepfather became abusive, I would just leave. I'd walk out in the hills. If they were fighting, I would leave. They were a stressor. I would walk out into the hills and get away from it and be where I could be at peace at it. So those are something that you want to probably get away with on a healthy, constructive mechanism rather than a maladaptive, like drugs or alcohol. You're going to avoid your feelings via drugs or alcohol. You don't want to do that. Okay. Coping mechanisms can also be categorized by the result they bring. So you got adaptive mechanisms that provide positive support. So you can adapt in a positive way to the situation so that the outcome is positive. Okay. You got the attack mechanisms where you transfer pain onto another person or object. Well, my fault. I didn't do it. Bob did it. I told Bob not to do that, and he wouldn't listen to me, so he went out and did it, and it's not my problem. He did it, not me. This what we call denial. Never looking at our own part in anything that happens in our life. We transfer the blame on other people to avoid the pain ourselves and the embarrassment ourselves. Avoidance mechanisms provide some kind of escape from a problem. So we can just avoid the whole situation altogether. We know there's a problem. And so one way we deal with it is we just avoid it. Ignore it like it didn't happen. Okay, and that's not healthy because the problem's there. We avoid it. Doesn't mean it went away. We just avoided it for the time being. It's kind of like a lie. A lot of times we want to tell a lie because we're afraid of the consequences if we tell the truth at the moment. But I always say, wouldn't you rather face the consequences of today than keep the lie going and keep it in the dark, and 6 months down the road it comes out, and the consequences 6 months down the road or even a month down the road are going to be far worse than they were if you would have just talked about it the first time? It doesn't make no sense to run from the problem. It doesn't make no sense to avoid it because it's not going to go away. I found that out the hard way. There's the behavioral mechanisms, so we change our actions. All right. Randy's acting like a jerk around all the guys that he rides with. He's being a jerk out there. He's not talking to anybody. He's being mean. He's cutting people off, right? And so it could be that they're making a threat to, well, Randy, if you're going to keep doing this, you're done. So I can just change my action to avoid any kind of my actions on the outside. I can change to avoid any kind of negative consequences that they might bestow upon me. But what's happening on the inside of me? Have I changed any of that? So along with our actions, okay, next one is the cognitive mechanism. We have to change how we think. These are positive. These are hard ones. We're going to change our actions, but in order to change our actions, we have to change how one thinks. If we don't change our thinking, then our actions are going to remain the same, whether we want them to or not. And the self-harming mechanisms which transfers emotional pain into physical pain. So I was talking at the college the other day, and we talked about the cutters and the emotional pain, and I know that they would cut because they can't deal with the emotional pain; they can deal with the physical pain. And somebody brought this up to me. It was very eye-opening. That the other thing with cutters, okay, so the self-harming mechanisms, is that they never know, and this is true, we never know when that emotional pain is gonna hit. We don't have control over that emotional pain. We could be fine 1 minute, and then all of a sudden somebody says something or does something, and we're in this emotional turmoil. So cutters also use it as a way of controlling their pain. They can't control emotional pain, but they can control the physical pain. It's easier to deal with the physical pain than it is with the emotional pain. So self-harming is a coping mechanism, which is very maladaptive. It isn't healthy. So defense mechanisms and maladaptive coping skills reduce unwanted symptoms in the short term, i.e. the cutting, in the short term, i.e. the drugs or the alcohol, but it only strengthens and intensifies the underlying problems in the long run. So they don't go again. they're avoiding the situation. We hide behind the maladaptive coping skills, the drugs, the alcohol, the cutting, the overeating, the overspending, the gambling, whatever it is. But the problem is that the situation never goes away. And by doing that, we only make the situations far worse. And remember that most of us abuse victims, we come from a very dysfunctional home. So it's very unlikely that any of us have walked out of that unless we've had some good mentors along the way and have developed them. But very few of us and very few children develop these healthy coping skills as children. They're just not there because, again, we're in survival mode. So we're going to do whatever we have to do to make it through the day, make it through the night, whatever that is, good, bad, or indifferent. If it works for us, we're going to do it, regardless of the outcome. You know, it's like, well, yeah, it didn't work and it hurt somebody, but I'm hurting and it takes the pain away from me. So the one thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we take a moment to appreciate ourselves for staying alive and making it through the dark nights and tough times. I had a therapist sit down with me. She was doing EMDR with me. And she sat down knee to knee with me. She looked me right in the eye. And I never had anybody tell me this. And I use this line with everybody now. Randy, absolutely everything absolutely perfect in your life. And I looked at her. She goes, you've done everything perfect, Randy, because you're sitting here today and you're alive. So we don't want to look back on our life and beat ourselves up, okay? Yeah, we made some mistakes and we did some dumb things. But again, we did them to survive. And again, we did them absolutely perfect because it would have taken maybe one thing. It would have taken maybe one more comment to my stepfather. And maybe he would have beat me to death one night. Or maybe, I would have made a turn on the wrong street. Or there's a countless things that if I would have done one thing wrong, or you would have done one thing wrong, you wouldn't be here today. You could be 6 feet under. You could be locked up in prison. You could be a missing person. So think of it that way. Don't beat yourself up. We made mistakes, but you're alive. And you be grateful that you're alive. You're here. And you're working on your recovery. And recovery is hard, really hard. It's probably the hardest thing that a person ever does in his life. I see more people run than I do get it. Okay? So don't beat yourself up. Your coping mechanisms worked. Good, bad, or indifferent. We'll take a look at more of those next week. So next week we'll talk more about what you can do also is take a look at take an inventory of yourself, of your coping skills, good and bad. Just take a day and sit down and put, negative and positive on the side of a paper and write them out, whatever they were. And they are what they are to you. Don't go what I say or what anybody else says. If you thought it was a positive coping mechanism, then say it was a positive mechanism. Okay. If you say it was a maladaptive one, it was maladaptive. Okay. It's not going to hurt. Okay. Remember, in recovery, the better you know yourself, the better off your recovery is going to be. It says that we must become rigorously honest in the program. And who does that rigorously honest start with? Who does that rigorous honesty start with? It starts within ourselves, because if we can't be honest with ourselves, then we can't be honest with God. We're living a lie. We can't be honest with our sponsors. We can't be honest with our spouses, our past, whatever. If we're not honest with ourselves about us and our life, about the things that are bothering us and hurting us. Oh, I don't want to say nothing about my parents because they raised me. If you got a resentment about them, we need to talk about it. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean you hate your parents. In fact, when you do that, you're going to probably love your parents, find out that you'll be able to love your parents in a way that you never thought possible. So we must get to the truth of who we really are and how we really feel. Like my sponsor told me, it's your story, Randy. Nobody can ever take it from you. Your truth. We want to speak our truth. It's okay. All right? when it comes to the maladaptive coping skills, it's good to know that you want to change. And when it comes to positive coping skills, it's good to know which ones you want to keep. So that's the other thing you want to look at. And, the next couple Mondays, we'll go over that, which ones you want to keep and which ones you might want to get rid of. I'm not going to tell you which ones to get rid of. That's up to you. I'll just go over what I discovered in the research on my book, okay? So next week, we will talk about the coping mechanisms. I got a pretty extensive list of them that I'll be reading off. So that'll be next Monday. We'll do that at 10 o'clock. In the meantime, as I told you last week, the golf tournament has been canceled due to lack of interest, unfortunately, or actually just postponed. We're going to do it at a later date, get a little more sponsorship behind it, get some more people help me out. Also, visit the Courageous Healers website at courageoushealers.org so you can see what's going on there. As far as life coaching, visit my Change Your Life Story Now, changemylifestorynow.com, changeyourlifestorynow.com, save your life story, changeyourlifestorynow.com. Look, we can help with all sorts of things. With marriage counseling, Kathy and I are doing some work with couples right now. The couples are really getting a lot out of it. So we're doing really good work with couples. With your addictions, I'll work with your addictions, with abuse, inner healing, and spiritual. Whatever you need coaching on, whatever you need helping on, we can help you with that. So, visit the website and fill out the contact form. In most cases, I respond within 4 hours. So, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for to start a new life? Today's a perfect day to start your life fresh. And it's a journey. It hurts. It's not easy. It's going to be hard, but it is what it is. Okay. Remember, you got my book on Amazon, Healing the Wounded Child Within, paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. It's available on all three of those. We're wanting to get to the next level of obtaining a facility in the Coachella Valley. The foundation is, but we need your help. We can't do it alone. So if by chance you know someone that has an empty office building, about 500 to 750 square feet, that's just sitting there, they're empty, and they'd be willing to do a in-kind donation for the rent or at a very minimal cost, please let me know by instant messaging me. Or if you want to donate to the foundation, you can just go to the webpage, courageoushealers.org. Click on the donate button and donate there. You can do it either monthly. You can do a one-time donation, or you can do monthly donation, be a monthly contributor. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, so all contributions are tax deductible. So that's it for today. I hope to see you all next Monday. Thanks for joining me today. I can't do this without all of you. I'm trying to build this platform. I'm still working on the podcast that I've got to fine tune a lot. There's a lot to it, a lot more than I thought there was. So I do a lot of this by myself, so it just takes me a little bit more time. So remember, if nobody tells you they love you today, Randy does, but more importantly, God does. Be blessed, everybody. Have a super good week. Love you all. Bye.